I quit. I got attacked by a billy goat, and that was from my wife.
Hey everyone, it's Sarah Hand here. I'm in Mount Pleasant, Iowa, and today we're going to follow along with Chris, Lynn, and Karen on how they started their own auction company from scratch to combining with Steffes, a company with the same values.
My name is Lynn Richard, and I'm in sales with Steffes.
My name is Chris Richard. I am the real estate auction coordinator based out of the Mount Pleasant office.
Well, in 1980 or 81, I was selling case tractors for a living, and my wife Karen was selling Avon for a living. And I came in to the office one night after being out on the road, and there was a great big note written on my desk that said, I quit. I got attacked by a billy goat. And that was from my wife, and because a billy goat, when she was delivering her Avon, attacked her. And so I said, well, we're going to need to find her a job. So she went into real estate school, and I went to auction school. We always wanted to own our own business and our own company, but never had enough money that we could buy anything, so we kind of started it from zero. There was a man and his wife that owned the gas station here in Mount Pleasant, and they were going to sell their gas station and turn it into a sweet shop. And so I went to see John and Betty Healy was their name, and I went to see him and I said, John, I understand you're going to have an auction, and I was wondering if I could have your sale. And he said, well, Lynn, how many sales have you had? And I said, well, one counting yours. And he said, oh. Well, he said, what do you charge? And I said, 15% plus $63 for advertising. And he said, you're not competitive, Lynn. And so I went home that night and told Karen about it, and Karen said, well, you better go back and see him. You got to have your first sale or we're never going to get in business. And so I went back the next night after work, and I said, John, I'll do your sale for 10%. And he said, Lynn, you're still not competitive. And I said, now I'm mad. And I said, well, John, I'll do your sale for 5%. I'll go out to my brother Dwayne's and I'll pick up all the hay racks and I'll bring him in here, and after work I'll help you get everything out of here and I'll get it all set up for you, and I'll do it for 5% plus $63 advertising. He said, well, you can have the sale, but you're still not competitive. And I said, my goodness, what's everybody else charging? He said, 20%. It was an education that I picked up real quick. When somebody says I'm not competitive, I want to know if I'm too high or too low. And as time went on, then we finally had by ourselves, our first machinery sale, and that was with Ron and Liz Bushart from Wayland, Iowa. Misjudged how big a sale it was. My brother Dwayne was the ring person. Judy, his wife, was the clerk for me. Karen, my wife, was the cashier. And my dad, who was at that time a retired minister, drove the truck for us. It was 90 degrees that day, and I thought it was a 3 or 4 hour sale, and it ended up taking 8 hours. And I cried the whole 8 hours, and I was almost without words when that day was over with. But it's memories, and it was a good sale, and everybody was happy when it was over with. So yeah, obviously. And then we started doing more and more sales as things were going along.
My first job with Richard Realty and Auction I was what they called the sheet runner. And that, back in the day before computerized accounting or computer auction systems, I was the one to run the sheet from the auction topper back to the mobile office, or back in the day it was the back of the pickup truck to my aunt who was in the garage on a cardboard table. The lofty pay of 5 cents a sheet was my pay for the day for each sheet, and then later on I did ask for a raise to be 10 cents a sheet with that, but then later on I got basically my job was eliminated because of the computer system. Now it's all computerized and paperless.
Well, the start of it was Dwayne and Judy, which was my brother and sister-in-law, ended up working with us for 22 years, and they were really, 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 really wonderful, wonderful partners, even though they weren't partners, but we worked together. Then we had a son, Chris, that went to auction school when he was 12. We have a daughter, Angie, that is 16 or was 16 at that time, went to auction school. Yeah, that nucleus worked several years together, and then we started adding employees as we continued to grow. And those employees some of them are still working for Steffes today, which is really a good feeling for us because they were dear friends of ours and helped us build a wonderful relationship with the Southeast Iowa community. So also, as we continued to grow, there was a friend by the name of Lee Pennebaker that came and joined us, and she had a lot of knowledge about the real estate, selling farm real estate at auction. She enjoyed teaching some of the younger people that we had working with us at that time, and some of them bluntly were 17, 18, 19, 20 years old, and she really enjoyed teaching them some of the things about auctions that she knew. And then Dwayne and Judy were helping with that, and Chris was getting older, and during the years, those people that helped us grow our company became family and still are today, and we're very grateful for that. So the why was we needed to make a living. We need to figure this out. And we did. It just took time to grow, and as it continued to grow, and we started to have more and more machinery consignment sales. We sold pots and pans, we sold antiques. It wasn't my love, but we did it all. And machinery sales started to grow, land sales started to grow, and during the 35 years that Karen and I and Dwayne and Judy and Chris were in business as a family, we had an argument here about a year ago on how many acres of land we sold. And Karen said, well, I've got them all on the computer, I can go add it up. And so I was with Dwayne, and you know what? Karen went home and added it all up and called us back and said it was 65,000 acres. And I said, you gotta be kidding me. So when you hear that, the why was that we needed a job. The rewarding part of it was, look how many people and how many friends and customers that you got to know over the years. It was unbelievable, and each and every one of those real estate and land auctions positively sold to the highest bidder with no reserve. That was taught to me by Harold Van Syke, who was our competitor ahead of me, and that was taught to me by Lee Pennebaker, and that's what we did. And it all positively sold to the highest bidder without reserve. Well, it's rewarding when you help somebody, because those are pretty challenging days if you have somebody that's having an auction because the economy's forced them to have an auction or whatever. Those are pretty challenging days. And one of the misperceptions about auctions is people think you do that as a last resort. And our deal there was that we think it's done as a first resort. Because if you have something that's real desirable, let's let everybody bid on it. If you don't have anything that's very desirable, let's just list it and sell it because there'll only be one bidder. And land auctions and machinery, that's why we believe auction was the best way to go with that.
The most rewarding about being with Richard Realty and Auction, obviously, working with my parents side by side, that was rewarding, and my aunts and uncles, so it was a family business. But also we were the leading innovators in the auction industry in our area with the full color sale bills. Also, we were the first ones to come out with the computerized clerking system for the auction industry, and that was a game changer.
We even had video live at some of our machinery consignment sales. So with Chris's help and Brad's help that still works at Steffes, we came up with some pretty unique ideas as far as doing things that were new to the industry. So the thing that you asked about what the big changes are, you need to understand that when we started, the very first auction that we ever did, I stood in the back of a pickup with a horn, and Karen was in that gas station with a card table, and Judy was in the back of the pickup with me with a card table. That was our equipment. A few years forward, Chris and I made a mobile office out of an ambulance, and it's pretty cool. And then we made a self-propelled, what we called a little topper that you could actually drive around and do auctions in yards and small areas. And then, of course, we had a couple toppers on pickups that we used. So that was pretty cool that we were able to have all that stuff. And in 1985, when we went full-time, Karen, a couple of years before that, had rented an office uptown, and I think we were paying $200 or $300 a month for her to be in that office. And then When we went full-time, we went down the street and bought an office, went to the bank. Don Carmody, which was our banker and our friend, loaned us an unsecured loan for $65,000 to buy the building and start our business. And that business then moved into there, and we were there for, I would say, probably 10 or 12 years. And then we outgrew that, and we moved on the edge of town out by Walmart, and we were on some acreages out there that we rented, and then we had bought an area there and built a new building. So it grew, and then we outgrew that. And look around today where we're sitting doing this video with the new 40 acres and the new buildings here, and there's room for 800 people to park. Pretty exciting to be a part of it, to be real honest with you.
You know, when I came back from college, which was in '97, I was on the real estate side. I had my real estate license, and I sold real estate full time. And at that point, you know, my dad was kind of asking, you know, do you have inspiration of taking over the family business? Which at that point, I did not. I seen the how I want to say, the stresses and struggles of owning your own sole proprietor business. Mom and Dad would go through of making sure that we had enough auctions coming in and doing payroll, and the stresses of working with you know, sellers and the like. And so fast forward, you know, throughout the years, my uncle ended up retiring. And so we worked through a couple of other situations on what the future would hold for Richard Realty and Auction, and they just never panned out. And then I'll never forget one day, finally my dad asked me, and this was obviously, you know, in 2011 or 12, in that time period, he basically came and asked me, he said, what are we going to do next? And at that time, I was a member of the National Auctioneers Association. And I want to say just a month prior, there was in their magazine, Auctioneer Magazine, there was a write-up about Scott Steffes and his company out of Fargo, North Dakota. And I presented that to Dad, and I was like, you know what? I don't know Scott Steffes, but maybe Scott Steffes knows somebody, or maybe he's looking at, you know, acquiring and merging with another company like ours. And believe it or not, right then and there, Dad picked up the phone and called Scott and got connected to Scott right away. Dad told him about the situation that we had down here, and that seeing if he would have interest. And basically, 6 months later, we merged with Steffes Group and Steffes Auctioneers at that time. And you know, it was a great fit. The way that they do business was the same way that Mom and Dad did business, how they treated customers, just the values and the core values were aligned very, very similar and very well on how, and so the transition was very easy because of that.
The thing that's so much different is that Scott Steffes has done a tremendous job in making sure that everybody that works with Steffes has the proper tools to get the job done, and he stays out of the way. My leadership was a little different than his. I kind of told people what I wanted them to do. Scott Steffes is the kind of individual that allows people to do what they're really good at.
It's cool to see how technology with Steffes has been the norm, you know, and being on the leading, cutting edge of the auction industry.
What an amazing story Richard Realty and Auction has. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button. If you have a story idea that you would like to share, comment down below. We would love to share that. See you next time.